I'll just introduce myself. So for those people who don't know me, my name is Gideon Barker, and I am the founder of a research consultancy called Customer IQ. I've been working in the market research industry for about 24 years, lucky old me. Haven't managed to kind of escape it yet. But in that time have kind of worked in agencies, in some big organizations like the BBC, ITV. I spent some time working in kind of TV broadcast as an audience researcher, which was kind of fun. And then the last 14 years I've been working kind of running my own business, and that's evolved over time. The latest kind of iteration of that is customer IQ. And I'm focusing my time now on helping startups, early stage startups that have investment and revenue, through to kind of those that are looking to scale. So I'm trying to kind of provide services and products for all of those types of startup business. But that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about some of the essentials of market research, an exciting topic for a Friday lunchtime, I'm sure you'll agree. So there's three things we're going to cover. I'm going to try and keep to time so that we're done around about 12:30, and then I'll allow some time for questions. So if you have a question, I'm not going to be strict and say you can't ask a question to the end. If you do have a question, put your hand up, or, physically or digitally, and I'll come and ask you. But very often the answers to those questions come further in the slides, so it might be better to wait until the end. So we're going to cover three things. We're going to look at estimating market size. We're going to look at how we might understand a bit more about the competition within the market. And we're also going to look at ways in which we could demonstrate why your timing is right, why right now is the right time for your startup, which is pretty crucial in terms of something like securing investment. I should say, I'm not a multi-exited founder yet, so I haven't raised money. I don't have that kind of lived experience of pitching for money and winning it. So I'm coming at this very much from a kind of research perspective. Anyone who has got that kind of experience, please chip in where appropriate, where useful. Happy to kind of make this a bit more interactive. But yes, so very much coming at this from a kind of a researcher's perspective. So market sizing, I think a couple of things just before we kind of get into the kind of more practical elements of that. A couple of things I think, and this seems probably quite obvious, but two reasons really to go through this exercise of market sizing. And I think probably the most important one is the first one. It's for you. It's going to give you some confidence that the business that you're developing, the idea that you're starting, has a big enough market in which to thrive, in which to grow. So it's an exercise you will go through for your pitch deck. I think having your kind of market size and your TAM, SAM, SOM, and all of that kind of stuff is very much a requisite of a good pitch deck. But I think importantly, it's going to give you the confidence that the market that you're entering is one in which you can succeed. In terms of that, we'll come on to the kind of calculations. Sometimes you're probably seeing where the market size maybe looks a little bit inflated. I think that's probably something that people easily spot. So I think it's important to make sure that your calculations look realistic, are based on good data, and we'll come on to what good data means. But obviously for you, and you need to know that the market that you're going into is big enough to sustain you and presumably a bunch of competitors as well. So no doubt you've kind of come across this kind of terminology before. I don't want to kind of dwell on these kind of definitions, but TAM, SAM, SOM, total addressable market, the overall market size, The serviceable available market is the portion of that market that you can currently service based on your business model, and that might be limited by the target audience that you're looking to serve, or it might be limited by location, geography, all sorts of things. And then your SOM is the realistic proportion of that available market that you can obtain. So you're in essence your market share. And I guess that what's interesting about SOM is that might be something that's it's not static. It's going to change. You could forecast that growth. What's your market share this year versus next year and the year after. So that's a good exercise to go through as well, particularly I think for potential investors. Some of the other things I'd consider before we look at some of the practical ways of calculating market size are things like, is the market growing? Can you demonstrate that there is good growth in that market? If so, can you identify where that growth is? Is it in particular locations, territories? Is it amongst a particular segment of the customer base? How much is that growth? That kind of data is very useful, again, for you, but also for potential investors. I think one thing, and again, to reiterate, I don't have this isn't me saying you must do this for your pitches, because I don't have that kind of lived experience of pitching and winning money. But for me, maybe it's not a slide on your pitch deck, but certainly something that you might consider having in your back pocket is a little bit of customer insight. A little bit of knowledge, a little bit of understanding of how customers behave in the market. What are the customer needs? What triggers the customer to kind of buy? What motivates them to engage? And so all of those things I think are going to make you look more knowledgeable, more investable potentially. And then further to that, is there anything coming up which may impact that market size? Is there some kind of regulatory change happening? Maybe some new regulation coming in. Maybe there's some deregulation in the market that you can take that opportunity. Is it a market that's where you're going to see lots of new entrants coming in over the next few years? Will there be a lot more increased competition? Understanding what might happen in the near future. In terms of calculating kind of TAM, I'm going to focus on TAM because I think the other calculations are all kind of based around that. I think to break it down into kind of its elements and its most kind of simplest form, this is what the calculation really is about, isn't it? It's about the number of customers that exist in that market. It's about the frequency of which they make a purchase, and it's about the average price of that purchase. And if you multiply those all up, you get your kind of annual market size, market value. Just to kind of put on a very kind of fictional example, I Googled, how many accountancy firms are there in the UK? This is a fictitious idea, maybe, a business that wants to target accountancy firms, there's a piece of software that accountancy firms buy, and it's, they pay £100 a month for it. That's kind of how you're going to arrive at that kind of £50 million market size. So in essence, it's pretty simple. I think the challenge there is to find that kind of data, right? And the process I would start with is thinking about, how do I access that data, good quality data, robust data, and what I mean by good quality data are lots of different things I've kind of listed there. But does it come from a trusted source, or does it feel a little bit made up? Can you kind of does it stand up to a little bit of scrutiny? Is it being collected properly with a good methodology? Sometimes when you see this data that's published, you can trace it back, you can track back and kind of find out where it's come from, and make a judgment over how good it is. Is it relevant? You want something quite up to date. You might be in a market that's been affected by COVID, for example, and that's kind of upended the whole market dynamics. So you might need to find some more recent data that's kind of collected since COVID, collected properly, again, kind of etc. So apply your critical thinking to the data that you're finding. Does it look right? Where's it come from? Has it been collected properly? Has it been done quite recently? And then, if you're happy with that data and you've got that data, and I'll come on in a moment to talk about where you might find that data. You can perform a calculation. One of the questions that comes up quite a lot is, can I kind of combine different sources of data to create my calculation? I think so. I think bearing in mind, as long as you can kind of defend it, and you've done a logical kind of sensible calculation on this data, I think that's fine. I think we should bear in mind that what we're trying to create is an estimate of market size, and obviously it's not going to be 100% accurate, but to get close to reality within a range, is where you want to get to. That data is very often freely available, and I absolutely take the point that will depend very much on the market that you're in as to how much data there is available. If you're in a brand new market where there isn't much data available, that's going to be a bit more of a challenge. You can look at collecting some fresh data. Obviously there's a cost attached to that. Any kind of new data that you're collecting is likely, for a market sizing exercise, is likely to be something based on a survey, or you might want to access some existing market reports that charge, that you can buy off the shelf for a fee. One thing to bear in mind, one method that I think is very unknown, little known, is an omnibus survey. So if you wanted to go out and sort of pay for a market survey of your own, it's going to run up into kind of thousands of pounds, depending on number of questions you're asking and who you're targeting, and how many different kind of markets you're looking to do that in. But an omnibus survey is a really cost-effective way of doing that kind of research, but you're only buying single questions. So typically you'd pay £250–300 for a question on a survey. You can obviously pay for as many as you like, but it's a very cost-effective way of getting some really good quality, well collected, robust data. And if you wanted to get some advice on where to go to find a good omnibus survey, ridiculous name, I know, because it doesn't really mean anything to anyone unless you work in the research industry. If you wanted some advice on that, please get in touch and I can help you with that. So different ways of calculating market size, TAM. The first thing I would do is just find if someone else has done it and use that. It's the most straightforward way, the simplest way. Often it's going to give there'll be a really well calculated, robust data set that you can access. I've just put an example on this slide of, this is the UK co-working office spaces market. So there's a reasonable amount of detail there in terms of current market size and then the estimated market size. It comes from Mordor Intelligence, who I don't know at all, but I would check them out and make sure that I've got some confidence in that data has been collected well. So yeah, first step, find out if someone else has done it, and you'll be surprised at how many market size examples like this there are in existence. And I'll come on to where you might find this sort of stuff in a second. Another couple of ways of doing it, which you may be aware of, is kind of top-down calculation or a bottom-up calculation. So a top-down calculation, the visual here is just to kind of demonstrate. Imagine you've kind of got a block of stone and you're chipping away at it to get to the right market size for you. So you might find there's a data point that exists out there that's useful for you, but it's not quite right. Maybe it's a global market size and you're looking for like Europe or UK. So you can kind of chip away at that until it's the right size for you based on your logical assumptions. So that's kind of working from a kind of a data point at the top and kind of narrowing it down. And Another way to think about that is a kind of bottom-up calculation. So you might approach it differently, and potentially this is a more accurate way of doing it. So you might, back to the slide earlier where you've got the number of customers and the frequency of purchase and the value of the purchase, you might be looking for that kind of data to create your own calculations, so sort of building those blocks up from the bottom up. I think either way, it kind of depends on what data is available, right? So the approach that you take would depend on the kind of data that you can find. Another couple of ways, if it's a very new market or a very kind of early nascent market, you might want to, and this might be where you start collecting your own data, is to understand, what if you're developing something very new and it doesn't exist, you could estimate the value that it's giving to customers and how much they might pay for it and how many there might be, and so you can kind of calculate it that way. Or there might be another market kind of sitting alongside the market that you're entering, because it's very new or it's nascent. Then you might find that there's a similar related industry that you could sort of use as a kind of proxy. So where are we going to find this kind of good quality data? I'm not going to. There's a few charts on this, so I'm going to kind of move quite quickly through this. But I can always come back and answer any questions, or you can get in touch with me afterwards. But the point I want to make is there is a lot of data out there that's available, and much of it is free. You'll be surprised how much data you can gather very quickly just through some Google searching, using different search terms, playing around with what you're looking for. There'll be, government statistics. You can often find things through aggregators like Statista. There's some good audience tools out there. There's often some good data published by trade organizations. If there's a marketing body or a trade organization within the market that you're working in, then it's very often that they all have they will collect and they will publish data for that market, so that's often freely available. Market research agencies love to publish their own research and data, and they use it as a marketing tool, so you'd be surprised how much they sort of put out for free. And then in blue there, you've got the kind of market reports, which are, you've heard of things like Mintel. There's lots of companies that provide these kind of off-the-shelf market industry reports. The problem with them is that they are particularly expensive, particularly for startups, particularly for early stage, idea stage startups. So, Mintel, Euromonitor, IBISWorld, there's a whole host of them, and you'll surface these when you're doing your Google searching. You can pay like $2,000 up to $5,000 for some of these reports, and I'll come on to how to kind of maybe get around that in a second. The one thing that's missing on here is generative AI. Can you ask ChatGPT to do this for you? I would have a go. I've had a go myself, and found that it sort of says, I can't really do this. So I'm quite hopeful for me that there's still a role for someone like me to help people like you to calculate your market size. But yeah, have a go. Obviously ChatGPT and other tools are only going to get better and better at this, and they're going to suck in more data and more up-to-date data, so it's worth having a go. But as we know, generative AI has this habit of what they call hallucinating, which is actually, it just tells lies. So you need to make sure you understand where it's coming from, and that it's kind of robust enough for you to use. So I'm not going to go through each of these in much detail, but just an example of government. You'll be surprised how much data the government collects and publishes. So for me, this example was from, it's how much money schools spend. So if you're working in education, maybe in ed tech, there's already quite a lot of data there that you can use. And obviously, because it's government data, you're pretty safe to use it, and pretty certain that it has a good level of robustness. Statista is often up the top of the search rankings when you're looking at this kind of data, and it does have a pricing model behind it, but it does publish some data points for free, so you might get lucky. There's a good audience tool out there called Spark Toro. This is more, I think, for when you want to sort of target your audience, maybe when you're planning your kind of go-to-market strategy. It might not be that helpful for market sizing, but it's nonetheless, it's a good tool. Example here from kind of press, trade organizations. So this data, it was published on money.co.uk, but looking into it, it's been collected by the Bank of England. So again, it's kind of, you know, has a level of trust around it. Some data here from Kantar, which is a big market research agency. I will share these slides afterwards, so you'll have access to these examples. So market reports, Mintel is a common one, probably the most well-known one, but there are a number of other companies that do the same sort of thing. They employ analysts who work in an incredibly wide range of markets, and some very niche markets too, and they publish and regularly update these reports that cover include incredible detail, lots of data points. The thing you're probably looking for is at this stage is maybe just the market size, and you can see on that kind of table of contents, it's just one element of that report. You might get lucky, they might give away the market size data as a bit of a taster. I've seen some examples of where that's the case. Or you might just ask them, I don't want to buy the whole report, I want to just access the market size data. Could you provide that for a 100 quid rather than 5 grand? You never know. You might get lucky. You might be able to find. Someone suggested that these kind of reports are available in libraries. I'm not so sure they are. I think someone said that you can access them through the British Library in London, but yeah, worth a go, worth checking out. So that's kind of market sizing covered. The next thing I wanted to look at was kind of competitors, and I feel like this is such an important part of developing and kind of planning your business, particularly at that early stage, is to kind of check out who else is in that marketplace. Obviously, you might be in a very new market where there isn't any competition, this kind of market of one. You may have spotted a gap in the market, and I think back to the conversation about market sizing, you need to be confident that there's a market in your gap. So you may have discovered this kind of gap that no one else is operating in. Can you be sure that there is a market there for you? But one of the great things about looking at your competitors is that you gain a lot of insight from them. Even kind of a simple exercise of looking through their website and just maybe making a few notes. What kind of language are they? I'll come on to that actually in more detail. But yeah, it's mapping them can help you understand where there might be a particular opportunity. And I've put there, avoid nasty surprises. An example, I was chatting to someone a few years ago, and they were developing a square pie business, and I said, oh, that sounds like a bit like the square pies, which was already something I'd enjoyed myself. Who wouldn't? And the chap there that started the business wasn't aware that there was another business offering square pies, because he hadn't kind of spent the time doing his kind of competitor analysis. And I believe that there was a little bit of litigation. It was a bit of a problem, but I think in the end they managed to settle that, and they realised there's enough space in the world for two square pie businesses. But yeah, so it can avoid some nasty surprises further down the line. So how are you going to do this? What are the steps you're going to do? I think this is probably something that's not so familiar with you're doing other things, you're developing businesses, you're growing businesses. This is not something you do every day. I wouldn't worry too much about how objective and how accurate you're being. I think just the exercise of reviewing your competitors, and even that, if that ends up being quite a subjective exercise, it's a really good one, because you're going to pick up some really interesting things. So have a look. First step, draw up a kind of competitor set. who are you going to include? You might find you're in a market with lots of competition, like in my market, the research industry. There are so many research suppliers. It's a little bit frightening how many people are out there kind of offering similar things. So maybe you pick some that are similar to you in size. Maybe you pick some of the market leaders. You're not going to be able to look at all of them, right? So if there's 100 competitors, just narrow it down to 10. If there are only 10 competitors in the market, brilliant. Just focus on those. Assess each one. I would spend some time looking through their website. That's the best way often to find out more about them, because you can kind of understand what they're about. What kind of language are they using, what are they focusing on, how are they kind of positioning themselves, what's their big offer, the tone. You might be able to find some pricing information depending on the market that you're in. Some markets are obviously much more transparent about the pricing, some aren't. So and you may be able to kind of surmise what kind of target audience are they focusing on. Are they in the same kind of area that you're going to be focusing on or not? And then this is a kind of, again, a very subjective exercise, but step 3 would be to kind of map out those competitors. And I'll show you in a second, what that might look like. But just pick a couple of different axes. Maybe it's a couple of things that are kind of relevant to the market that you're in. It could be price. It could be quality. It could be, how, kind of use of technology. Anything that feels relevant for your market, and you can kind of create a kind of 2x2 and kind of plot them and see where they end up. And I think the other thing you're looking for here is themes. So it'll be so enlightening and quite reassuring when you look at your competition, and most of them are talking in exactly the same way, and have very, very similar products and very similar offers. And it will be, and then things will pop in your head. Oh, right, okay, they're all doing this. I can do this, and it'll present lots of opportunities, hopefully, for how you can differentiate your business and be different from the rest. So this is the kind of thing you might end up with. Again, it's like, don't worry about the accuracy of it. Just do it. Do a kind of quick version of it. It'll help just kind of. You understand. So this was an example of something I did. I've delabeled it, desensitized it. But this particular market seemed to be about kind of very, very, very fast delivery or not, and then kind of premium or cheaper. So you have this kind of 2x2. You can see how that works, and you can see where the majority of people are kind of sitting, and then maybe how you might be able to kind of differentiate yourself. Timing wise, again, an important element of the success of your business is going to be whether this is the right kind of time. Are you able to kind of ride a trend, ride the wave of a trend? And I think from what I understand, investors are going to be looking, asking that kind of question. And I believe often the feedback from an investor might be, we like your idea, but not now. And often that might be because you haven't got enough traction or whatever, but it might just be, the timing's not right. So how are you going to demonstrate that the time is right? I think back to some of the things we've already talked about. Can you demonstrate that there's a strong element of growth in the market, and there's high customer demand? Are you in a kind of more traditional market that still has lots of opportunities to innovate through product or through use of technology, for example? Is there new technology infrastructure resources available to you, that you can deploy? Are you able to demonstrate that you are tapping into the zeitgeist, that there is a kind of cultural trend? And we'll come on to look at some of the tools you can use to show that, to demonstrate that. And again, is there a kind of regulatory story here? Is the market, opening up? I guess the kind of obvious example is kind of open banking a few years ago. Suddenly, a lot more a lot more businesses could enter kind of banking and savings. So if you're going to look at kind of trends, that there's loads of websites out there that can do this. This is one in particular, trendwatching.com, kind of, you know, does what it says on the tin. It has a subscription-based model, but there is a free element to it. So some of their trend work is available for free. So again, if you can pull some of that data into your business plan, into your pitch deck, you know, that can be quite a good way to demonstrate that, you know, that now is the right time. Google Trends, yeah, that has some value here because it's based on sort of Google search data. So you can demonstrate, as I have here, that the time is right for Korean food. So that's some interesting and a free tool to kind of play around with. There are some kind of spin-off tools from that. One I came across was called Exploding Topics, which is quite interesting because it has it just has a lot of kind of new trends that are emerging. It's worth having a look at, and I believe if you look at the website there, they're appealing to investors, you know, for them to be able to spot new opportunities to invest into. So it might be something that investors are quite familiar with. Just before we finish, lots of free tools out there. I know how hard it is, you know, when you're trying to do market research and you haven't got the budget to do it. So there are some tools out there, and I will share this deck with you so that you can kind of use this as a reference. But lots of tools. This is not exhaustive. I kind of keep this updated and keep adding to it. You know, there's lots of data aggregators. The EU publishes loads of data. Surprisingly, you know, where they go and what detail they go into. It might not include the UK for very much longer, for obvious reasons, but that's a really good source of data. You know, I won't talk about all of these, but there's lots of stuff out there. And of course, if you need some help, I am available. I'd love to kind of chat to you about more of this, you know, and I'm not going to charge for my time. I'm happy to kind of have conversations with you if you are struggling with things like market size, or if you want some advice on, you know, the quality of the data that you found or the calculation that you've come up with. Just to kind of a second opinion might be quite valuable. So I'm happy to kind of do that. But I do have a course. I do have a course that which will teach you the basics of how to run a research project. So it will take you through the steps that I go through when I run a research project. It's all online, and it's priced deliberately for kind of early stage startups. So it shouldn't be too expensive. But I'd welcome some feedback on that too. Okay, so we've just crept over 12:30. Happy to answer any questions now, or if that's enough for now and you want to drop off, equally that's fine. If you do have a question for me later, please get in touch with me on LinkedIn is the best way. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. Happy to connect with you. Happy to have a conversation. You know, I do like to have conversations with people about this, because I think a lot of this stuff is really important to get right. And you know, I'm there to help. But does anyone have a question now? Come off mute, raise your hand, whatever you need to do. Cool. Doesn't look like anyone has, which is great. Hopefully I've answered all of your questions as we went through. So I'll drop off here, just to say thank you for your time. I'm super grateful for giving up some time to listen to me. As I say, do connect with me on LinkedIn. I will follow up with an email which will have the slides and the recording, and yeah, hopefully see you at the next one. I'm committing myself to doing one of these every month for the rest of the year. So yeah, hopefully see you soon. have a great afternoon and weekend. Bye.